Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. I'm Gary Harris, and Rodney, tonight, since it was a big Alabama victory over number 8 Michigan, we're going to celebrate with a regular Pepsi.
A little more
sugar?
On the
Pepsi
more
next,
sugar?
yeah. Just you know, hey, sometimes you got to live it up, right?
There you go.
That was really good. Hey, you know, a lot of Alabama fans, Rodney, right now are already celebrating national championship number 15. There's a lot of work to go before that becomes a reality, but the great thing about Nick Saban, he's not celebrating. The second-ranked Crimson Tide dispatched of number 8 Michigan 41-14 on Saturday night in Arlington, Texas, in a performance that would have to be classified as dominant. But at his weekly press conference on Monday, Coach Saban predictably was quick to point out that it was just one game, and the issues that the Alabama team faced before the Michigan game are still the same issues that they're facing today. One game doesn't change that, regardless of what people are saying.
Everyone thought that we were too young, too inexperienced, couldn't handle success. Everybody was saying all those things about our team. Now people are saying something different. But my question is what's different? Nothing. We're still young. We're still inexperienced. We still got things to work on. So it's going to be all about the maturity that the team has to be able to focus on what they need to do to correct the deficits that we have, you know, whether it's individually, collectively, as a unit, in some part of our team, so that we improve as a team. And that's going to be important to how well we do.
Hey, I like what he had to say, Rodney, but there is no denying that when you take on the number 8 team in the country to open the season at a neutral site, you're number 2, and it's 31-0 midway through the second quarter, your fans are going to get excited. I mean, it was, now granted, Michigan outscored, after it was 31-0, they outscored Alabama 14-10 the rest of the way, but I mean, it was an incredible performance on that stage.
Yeah, it was, and I think certainly you nor I would sit here and say that we expected it to be 31-0 in the second quarter. So again, from that perspective, it was certainly a tremendous performance overall for the team for the entire game. But at the same time, Gary, I mean, what he's saying is exactly right. It was far from a flawless performance. I know that everybody's giving Alabama the great kudos and all of those things, and there's certainly, we've built the team up. We think that they've got an opportunity to be a great football team. But, you know, you could see that there were things on Saturday night that need to be worked on. You know, once they got ahead 31-0, there were some things in terms of the coverage down the field at times, a couple of busted coverages. A.J. McCarron missed some passes that were there for touchdowns. You know, again, I think there's clearly some things to work on. Pass protection is another thing that at times was not what it needed to be. So, you know, when you look at those things, you have to get those ironed out. And another thing, we talked about this repeatedly throughout the summer, how this would probably be a mismatch up front on both sides of the ball. And when you have that kind of a mismatch, it certainly lends to this kind of game. I mean, Alabama, frankly, dominated the game up front on the offensive line versus Michigan's young defensive line, and Alabama's defensive line did a great job on Michigan's young offensive line. So, again, I'm not trying to downplay the win by any means, but I think, you know, you kind of have to keep some things into perspective as well. When you get into the SEC, you're going to face some really difficult games, and if Alabama progresses, they're going to do really well.
Yeah, and Michigan deserves some credit for not quitting. You know, I'll say this for the quarterback. You know, he took some hits, but he continued to battle. He's a tough kid. And even though he didn't have the kind of game that he would have liked to have had, Michigan is a class program, and they never laid down. But one stat that jumps out to me, when it was 31-0, Rodney, midway through the second quarter, the total offense was 234 yards to 4. Wow. I mean, when the game was in doubt, Alabama completely dominated. T.J. Yeldon, 111 yards on 11 carries and a touchdown in his debut. How impressive was he?
Very extraordinarily impressive, Gary. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I think he has obviously everyone saw what he could do. And, you know, there were some other guys. I mean, how about Brandon Ivory filling in at nose guard? I thought he did a great job. This great hit by Vinny Sinceri was unbelievable.
Denard Robinson did wind up with 200 yards passing, but let's be honest, the game was already over with when he hit a couple of those big plays, and most of those yards did come on 2 touchdown passes, one of which Deion Ballou and Vinny Sinceri just didn't make the play, and on the other one, D. Milliner, who's the National Player of the Week. So obviously you have to keep it in context, but he fell down one time, tripped. A lot of people were tripping on that carpet out there at that great, incredible Cowboys Stadium. Let's go inside the numbers, Rodney, and this will testify to Alabama's dominance. You see the total yards, and again, most of Michigan's yardage came after the game was decided. Huge edge in rushing yards.
Yeah, and again, that's Alabama. Run the football, stop the run.
Total plays, Alabama ran more plays. The only turnover came on an Eddie Lacy fumble on the last play of the first half. Alabama picked off Michigan quarterbacks, Robinson twice and the backup once, so 3 turnovers to 1. Passing yardage, the only by a yard that Michigan had an advantage. But let's talk about A.J. McCarron. He only had 199 yards, but he did have 2 touchdowns. He spread it out. He threw it to 8 different receivers. That's something we talked about going into the season, that this receiving core, while it might not have a single star, had a bunch of different guys that could hurt you.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about, Gary, as I've said, I think this group of receivers has an opportunity to be the best group that I've seen here at Alabama. And they may not have a Julio Jones, but they have a lot of really good players. And when you look at Kevin Norwood, Kenny Bell made some big early catches. DeAndrew Wright made the big catch for a touchdown. And, hey, how about Michael Williams getting free for that first touchdown? The tight ends really did a good job. I thought Justin Fowler was really good, too, at the running back spot, Gary. And his versatility, moving up to fullback, that I formation that we saw inside the 10-yard line, I don't really recall that wrinkle last year.
You didn't see it, and I love it.
And I tell you what, I thought Alabama looked much better inside the 10-yard line for the most part when they were running the football.
You know, we saw Fowler. We know he's a good runner. But when he's in that I formation at fullback, he's a punishing blocker leading in there for one of those tailbacks. Also, you have the option of handing him the ball from the fullback position. I love the I formation when you got a guy like Justin Fowler leading the way.
And I think at some point we're going to see him catch a pass, too, because
absolutely.
He's really a talent. Matter of fact, they tried one, you know, the little shuttle forward. And had A.J. got it to him,
executed, it would have been a big gain.
There was a big gain. Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, the voters have taken notice of Alabama's performance in both the coaches poll and the AP poll. Now, listen to this. Alabama is #1 for a 5th consecutive season at some point in the season. That's only the 2nd time that's happened in the last 50 years. Miami did it with those great teams from 1986 through 1992. Coach Bryant never was able to do it with all those great teams in the 60s and 70s. What amazing accomplishment. There you see the top 10 in the AP poll. Alabama with 45 first-place votes, USC with 11, LSU with 4. In the coaches poll, it's very similar. Alabama overtaking the Trojans after 1 week of the season. And, you know, I'd always told you, if you're going to be near the top, I like being #2 rather than #1. But, hey, what can you say? Based on the first week, Alabama does like the best team.
Yeah, they do. And, you know, I like that stat, Gary, you talked about 5 years in a row. They have been at some point ranked #1. And, you know, Miami's the team that did it last, as you mentioned, back into Jimmy Johnson, then when they transitioned to Dennis Erickson. And, again, I think this Alabama program under Nick Saban has kind of become like the Miami teams of the 80s and the early 90s.
Yeah, Alabama and Miami, the only teams to do it in the last 50 years. And you think about that, all those great teams Coach Bryant had in the 60s and 70s, but even he could not have a team ranked #1 for 5 consecutive years. And of course, a lot of those years, Alabama didn't get to become #1 until the end of the season, kind of like it's happened with Saban a couple of times. And that's the key. Will you be #1 at the end? We shall see.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you look at it, Gary, as I said, you know, it's early. It's the first game of the season. The season just started.
Yeah.
And people are already talking about, well, they could compete with the Patriots. Well, guess what? They were saying that 2 years ago as well.
Lost 3 games.
You know, but still, I think this team has the leadership, has more leadership than that team did. I think certainly this team is going to make a run. But, again, they have some things, as we mentioned, that they have to shore up. All
right, Rodney, still to come tonight on Tider Insider Television. Next up for the Crimson Tide are the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. You know what? They say they're going to come to play. We'll preview that game, Bama's home opener, coming up. Also, we'll be taking your phone calls and answering your email questions. You see the number there on your screen. It's the same every week, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. Stick around. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Welcome back, everybody. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Next up for the Crimson Tide is Western Kentucky. Our predictions on the game coming up later, but first, let's preview the contest. Rodney, Western Kentucky head coach Willie Taggart, who is doing a good job, reportedly said that Alabama being a 40-point favorite is, quote, a bunch of baloney, unquote. But then he also said Alabama would be the next NFL expansion team. So let's talk about the Hilltoppers. They started out last week beating Austin Peay 49-10. Bama has played them once, and it was under Nick Saban in 2008. The Tide won 41-7. They're from the Sun Belt Conference, and a good start for them last week. So they're going to come in with a little bit of confidence.
Do you think maybe he was thinking that Taggart was thinking maybe Alabama should have been favored by more?
I think he was trying to say, hey, we're not intimidated, but,
okay.
but we wish we'll see. But you know what? The Sun Belt has produced some pretty good teams, although we saw their champion from last year, Arkansas State, just get it handed to them by Oregon on Saturday night. But still, as Coach Saban has pointed out, you have to respect everybody you play.
Absolutely, Gary. And their quarterback, Kawan Jakes, had a really good game in the season opener. He was 18 of 23, I think it was, 296 yards, 4 touchdowns. And, he's an outstanding player. He's an athletic kid, so he'll give Alabama's defense a little not only passing, but his ability to move around.
Again, Taggart, former Stanford assistant, was on that team that was a 40-something point underdog and beat USC, so he knows a little bit about shocking the world. So we'll see what Western Kentucky is able to do on Saturday afternoon. 2:39, the kickoff on the SEC Network at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Hey, let's take a look at some of the quick facts on Western Kentucky. Again, their head coach, Willie Taggart, in his 3rd season. Last week, they defeated Austin Peay 49-10. Their 2011 record, after a slow start, they finished 7-5 overall, 7-1 in the Sun Belt Conference, behind only Arkansas State. And you mentioned Jakes, their quarterback. Their running back, Allen, had nearly 100 yards last week. They've got a couple of All-American candidates, at least guys they're touting for All-American. Their tight end, Jack Doyle. And I will say this, the linebacker, Andrew Jackson, he looks like an SEC linebacker, about 240 pounds and, big, strong, physical kid. So they've got some good football.
Well, I think they have, what, did you say 19 starters?
Yeah,
back?
nearly everybody back from that team last year that won 7 games. So, again, they are a team that is going to come in here at least early in the game, believing they can play with Alabama. We'll see what happens as it goes on. Well, coming up, the Crimson Tide soccer team is off to one of its best starts ever. The story is on the way. And again, don't forget to give us a shout here on the program. Again, there's the information on your screen on how you get in touch with us. We'll talk soccer, then we'll take some phone calls when this edition of Tider Insider TV rolls on here on a Tuesday night in Tuscaloosa. Well, after 2 straight road games, the Alabama soccer team returned home Sunday afternoon to face coach's alma mater, Mercer. Sophomore midfielder Teresa Diedrich found the loose ball and punched it just barely over goalkeeper Nikki Atkinson's hands to give Alabama the 1-0 lead just 5 minutes and 46 seconds into the first half. Later in the half, Katie Bourgeois is going to feed the pass to sophomore Pia Risedike inside the box, and Risedike beats Atkinson for the far post for the goal. Pia added her 3rd goal of the season in the second half, helping Alabama defeat Todd Bramble's alma mater 3-0. The Tide improved to 5-0 on the season, one of their best starts ever. After the match, Todd Bramble said the key to victory was the Tide smothering pressure.
Yeah, I don't think our opponents, are that bad. I think we're playing well right now. I think we're a tough team to defend. I like the way we're attacking from a lot of different areas on the field and a lot of different people throughout our roster, whether they're in the starting lineup or not. We're getting a lot of good contributions right now from a lot of different areas, and that's something to be pleased with.
I think, yes, we definitely try to start off the game with a lot of momentum, a lot of aggression, just to try to put a few goals away like we did.
For us, we can get forward, we can get create chances, get shots on goal, get serves in the box, and that just for opponent does not feel great. And I know for a fact they were frustrated and didn't know where to pick us up, where to make runs. So that for us is feels good to put the opponent under pressure.
So like a lot of the programs we've seen here at Alabama, this women's soccer program looks like it's on the way up.
Good deal.
Yeah, off to a good, really, really good start. All right, Bonnie, time to take some phone calls. Let's start it off down in Moundville tonight and talk with John. John, welcome into TITV. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well. What's up, John?
I was just wondering, do you think Eddie Lacy's going to win the Heisman?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer at this point. It's one game in. He's not 100%. They limited his carries on Saturday night. Plus, he's got a lot of really other good backs that he's going to be sharing that football with. So I think he's going to be a good football player, have a good year. I doubt very seriously he's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
They spread the ball around
right.
so much. You talk about the backs that are starting to merge in addition to Eddie, and Gary mentioned that he's not 100% healthy, so his carries are going to be limited, at least early this season, as we saw The other night he only had 9 carries. You got T.J. Yeldon, you've got Justin Fowler, you've got D. Hart, and then the fact that A.J. McCarron's doing a good job throwing the football and all those receivers and the tight ends and all of those things. You're going to see Alabama use everything in their arsenal. So, again, I'm not sure that this is going to be an offense that's going to be designed for that kind of a season.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, all right, let's stick here in Tuscaloosa and talk with our buddy Joseph. Joseph, what's going on, man?
Hey, Gary, Rodney, what's happening with y'all?
Hey, Joseph.
Yeah, let me ask you, I heard about some nagging injuries on Jesse Williams and Trey DePriest a little bit. How did it come along with them?
Yeah, Joseph, Williams, a slight concussion against Michigan, DePriest, an ankle, and both are practicing this week.
Yeah, and again, you know, they're going through the drills. I watched Trey DePriest. He was moving around okay. So, you know, Joseph, Coach Saban said that they would be out a few days, but they should be fine.
All right, thanks for the phone call. Let's stay here in Tuscaloosa and talk to Jerry. Jerry, how are you? Jerry's gone. Wants to know what Eddie Williams redshirt this year. It's a good question, Jerry, because you know, right now, you never know with Nick Saban. If he needs a guy, he's going to play him, but he didn't play the other night.
And you have to remember that he did start out at wide receiver, even though he was a tremendous safety prospect coming out of high school. He got here in June, started out as a wide receiver, and they moved him once camp started, had been in about a week or so. So he's just getting acclimated to that safety spot. And, you know, Gary, you've got some guys there. You've got Benny Sinceri, you've got Robert Lester, you've got Nick Perry coming on, Clinton Dix. You know, it may not be a situation where he's needed, though. He's a really good athlete. You could see him possibly on special teams, but he didn't play the other night. So, you know, we'll see how things progress as the season goes.
And a red shirt's not a bad thing. It can pay dividends down the road. Remember, Barrett Jones was redshirted.
Yep.
And, you know, think about that. He wouldn't be here if Eddie not been redshirted. So Eddie Williams is a good football player and will be at some point in his career, if not sooner, certainly later. All right, time to take a timeout. Phone lines are open right now, 348-WVUA. So if you'd like to call in, you can get through. Also, we've got some emails we'll try to get to as well. Then later on, Rodney and I will have our predictions on Western Kentucky. And no, we're not going to pick an upset. But stay tuned to see what we have to say about it later on in the program. Let's go right back to the phones. We got a couple callers on hold. Carl is in Northport. Carl, welcome into Titv.
Hey, thank you. No, I just had a question about walk-ons. Does the NCAA restrict the number of walk-ons that football scholarship? No.
Carl, they don't, but there are other ways that there's only a certain amount of players that you can dress in conference games, even home games, and there's only a certain amount that you can have in fall camp until the roster expands. So, no, there isn't a limit to the number of walk-ons that you can have, but coaches generally limit the number to a reasonable number that they can work with.
I think, Gary, they usually have it around 120, 125 total.
The total roster
about
numbers,
total roster. I mean, so that would mean 15. That would mean, what, 35 or 40 walk-ons generally. I think that's pretty much what it's generally is.
But every now and then, one of those walk-ons will earn a scholarship like the snapper has, and then you have a walk-on like Kelly Johnson at tight end.
Yeah, he looked good.
Who's
H-back.
starting at the H-back, yeah. So, you know, those guys, they add a lot to the football team. And Carson Tinker's a snapper. Name escaped me for just a moment. All right, let's go to center and talk to LD. LD, what's going on?
Not much. I was a little concerned about the offensive line play. They give up a couple of rushes, and they looked like they had the quarterback sacked there a few times. I wonder if you could comment on that.
Well, we will, LD. I've got to disagree with you on this one. I mean, they always have to get better. It's a position that takes time, even with experience. But again, when the game was in jeopardy, did you not see the holes that those running backs were running through? They're good backs. Let's give them credit, but they were the size of tractor trailers sometimes. And the pass blocking, yeah, maybe a couple of times they could. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I thought the offensive line dominated.
I mean, you're talking about, first of all, and I've talked about the differences between Alabama and Michigan up front, but again, it is Michigan. Those guys are really pretty good players. And Alabama certainly saw some things in terms of, you know, Greg Madison's a really outstanding defensive coordinator. They do a lot of stunning. You're talking about Barrett Jones at a new position. You're talking about Cyrus Kwanjo on his first start. Again, sometimes it takes some chemistry, cohesiveness to develop. And I thought for a first game, I mean, it was phenomenal.
I think they're an outstanding offensive line and will only get better. So, yeah, nobody's perfect now, LD. Some room for improvement. Real quickly, Rodney, let's try to get Zach in from Bessemer before we go to break. Zach, go ahead, my friend.
Hi, guys. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, buddy.
I was just wondering if we're ever going to have a Boise State on our schedule, because they're such a powerful team and everything. And I think it'd be really good for the university if we could do that.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to schedule these out-of-conference opponents. But, yeah, I'm not going to say it won't happen.
Maybe that would be a good neutral site game sometime.
Yeah,
you never know.
It could happen like that. Georgia played them last year. Michigan State played them this year. You're right. Boise State's built a heck of a program. No doubt about that, Zach. All right, when we come back, it's time to make our predictions on the game between the Tide and the Hilltoppers. We'll do that when Tider Insider TV returns. All right, Rod, Arkansas next week, but first things first. You got to play Western Kentucky first. What's your prediction on Saturday for the home opener?
Let me just give the prediction.
Yeah, I know probably not a lot need to go into too much in depth, but tell us how you see it going down.
I don't think there's going to be a lot of excitement in the fourth quarter in this game, 45-3.
It's amazing how close we come to predicting.
And I didn't know what you predicted and vice versa.
Listen, it's a 40-point line for a reason, and I admire Coach Taggart for saying, hey, we're not going to be intimidated. We're going down there to play in front of 100,000 plus, but, I think that's about right. Alabama in 2008 under Saban beat them 41-7, I think we said. I think 45-6. I mean, I think they'll get a couple field goals. They might get a touchdown, get the extra point blocked. I do think that they are – it's not like playing a team like Savannah State or somebody like that. I mean, this is a representative team. But, again, Alabama's going to get to play a lot of their second-team guys and start getting ready for Arkansas. I like the Tide to roll as well, 45-6. Well, that is going to do it for the program. If you missed any of it, a reminder, you can see it again tonight at 10:35, or you can go to our website and catch it anytime you like, WVUATV.com. Hey, Rodney, it's dinner time tonight. Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. Come visit with us. The owner, Philip Guy, he'll be hanging out there. We'll talk some football. We've got a number of folks that you can show up and shoot the breeze with us. So we'll see you there. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching Tider Insider TV, and have a good night. Roll Tide.